Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome. I hope that this is all going okay. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay, if you guys can see me okay. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Felicia from Sweet Georgia and the School of Sweet Georgia, and we come here every month, the last Thursday of every month, to talk about things that have been happening inside the School of Sweet Georgia. So, the School of Sweet Georgia is our online fiber arts school where you can learn everything from knitting and spinning and weaving and dyeing to punch needle and tapestry and fiber prep and washing raw fleece, everything to do with the fiber arts. And it is super wonderful to see all of you guys here in the chat today. I did get a question, and so I am happy to answer questions in this session today. I have actually this question about photographing natural dye colors, and there's a perfect spot where I'm going to talk about that later in the Share Your Wins section. And so we're going to do that today as well. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for being here. So let's go to the stuff that we are going to talk about today. So, as always, I have a brief agenda of the things that we're going to talk about. And so we're kind of following this format we have been for the past couple of sessions. And it is talking about things that have been top of mind, things that are coming up soon, events that are going to be coming up soon. We're going to talk about community. And the big meat of the section is to talk about the Share Your Win section, which is all sharing about things that you in the school have been making and learning and doing with the knowledge that you've been gaining from the courses and the content and everything. Really, really excited to share the beautiful things that you guys have all created. So that is what we're going to talk about today. So, what is top of mind? One of the very first things that I do want to share is that if you guys are following our Instagram account for School of Sweet Georgia, you will see that last week, actually the past couple of weeks, we have been filming with Amanda Wood on the rigid heddle and learning how to do two heddle weaving on a rigid heddle loom. And originally, when we had started talking about this course content with Amanda, it's more than a year ago. We've been talking about doing this, but the whole idea was about learning how to weave double weave on a rigid heddle loom and seeing how that was possible. And we wanted to jump in and say, oh, we're going to learn double weave on a rigid heddle loom. But before we could get there, she had to introduce the idea of using pickup sticks with a rigid heddle loom. And so that first class that came out, weaving lace textures on a rigid heddle loom, came from this progression. You have to learn how to use a pickup stick to make different kinds of sheds on your rigid heddle loom. And then the next step is then to add another heddle. So now we're working with two heddles. And so you can kind of see them here in the photo. This is heddle 1 and this is heddle 2. And then we have here 4 pickup sticks. So 1, 2, 3, 4. They are labeled A, B, C, D. And using 4 pickup sticks and 2 heddles, you can create all sorts of crazy sheds on your rigid heddle loom, taking it further than just plain weave. And so with this particular sample, this blue and white sample, this happens to be just beam that she's using, that organic cotton, and she was able to make a double weave sampler on the rigid heddle loom. And so that content we filmed over the past 3 weeks, and that's going to come out in the next couple of months, actually in June, I believe. So really, really excited about that content. But again, it is kind of this progression from learning to use just the rigid heddle loom, making plain weave on that, and then going to adding a pickup stick and seeing how that works and how you can create new sheds, and then going to adding on more heddles, more pickup sticks, and building out your skill set from there. So really, really excited to be able to share that one with you. The next thing that I had to share with you guys is that this summer is going to be the first time that we're going to run this fiber arts camp for kids. It's from ages 7 and up. I don't know what the top level is, the top age is, but 7 and up. And it will be held at our Sweet Georgia studio here in Vancouver. And all of the workshops are going to be taught by Katrina from Crafty Jacks. Katrina Stewart is one of our spinning instructors here. She does fiber arts as well, teaching kids about how to knit, how to felt, how to weave, how to spin, all of the things that we do with the fiber arts. It would be amazing to be able to introduce some of these ideas and some of these concepts to kids, because just, planting a little bit of a seed seed, playing, touching yarn, touching fiber, playing with colors, seeing how it all works. It might just plant a seed for something that will happen years from now. Somebody, yes, Greta's saying somebody who is 6 years old and interested can also join as well. So if any of you know anybody in the Vancouver area who has kids that are in between the ages of about 6 to 12 who might be interested in learning how to knit, crochet, spin, weave, dye, well, maybe not dye, needle felt, wet felt, all of these kinds of different crafts. I encourage you guys to check out the website. It's at sweetgeorgiayarns.com, and there's going to be information there about the camp. So really, really excited to be able to share that with you. And so you can see that is some of my hand spun yarn here, and Nina has my spindle here. This is actually a spindle with walnut here for the whorl, and the shaft is cherry. This one was designed and made by Helen Maudsley, who is also in our school as well. So thank you so much for that beautiful spindle and for the chance to play with that too. Oh, Greta's saying yes, they're going to dye a bag as well. So that's going to be super fun. The other thing that has happened in the past month that is kind of a big deal that I wanted to share with you guys is that Tabitha Hedrick, our design director at Sweet Georgia, and she teaches a ton of the knitting classes and design classes, cable classes, lace classes at the School of Sweet Georgia. She came to visit us for the first time since 2019. So it's been a number of years. And so having her come to Vancouver and meet with the whole team was fantastic and amazing. But she came specifically to Vancouver so that we could film this class on knitting 2 socks at the same time. So you can see here, this is her socks. She's got sock A and sock B in different colors so that we can tell which one is which. These ones happen to be colors from our new Elixir colorway. So this one is called Honey Gold. That yellow color is called Honey Gold. And this kind of plummy purple color is called Vintage. And so these 2 socks, you can see she's knit the ribbing for the cuff, she's knit a little bit of sock body, and then this is the heel, that Dutch heel flap, and she's turning the heel here and doing this 2 at a time on one long circular needle. And so she shows how to do all of this, and we had the chance to film it all. It's fantastic. So we're looking forward to this coming out in the fall. We always do socks in the fall. Yes. Really, really excited about this. So I'm going to show you guys a photo from the filming day. You can see this is Tabitha here, and this is all of the socks that are knit part way. And so I don't know how many pairs. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 pairs of socks that she knit to show different stages of the sock knitting process, because it's kind of tricky to sit there and knit an entire sock, or actually 2 socks in one filming session. So she knit a whole bunch of these socks ahead of time, all at different stages, so that she could show you. And so she's placed them all on one big long needle in order to transport them here to film. And so this is her big long snake of step outs. There's a second course that Tabitha actually filmed with us during that session, and it's going to be called, well, right now the working title is called Going Pro. We don't have like a final title for that yet, but the idea is that Tabitha is going to sort of be your mentor and walk you through the process and the journey of becoming a knitwear designer. So if you are thinking about learning how to design your own knitwear, writing your own patterns, putting patterns out into the world, into the universe, publishing patterns, how do you do that? Where do you start? Like, where do you find a tech editor? What do you do about photography? What do you do about formatting? What do you do about a style guide? What do you do about branding? How do you create a logo? Like, all of these things she talks about in this session. And so that is going to come out probably next spring. And it's going to be kind of like we're talking about doing it as a live session, like running it as a live cohort with everybody who wants to participate in this idea of like becoming a knitwear designer or launching yourself as a knitwear designer, coming together and doing this together as a cohort. So that is something that we are going to be working on for the rest of the year, putting that sort of content together. The other thing that happened is while Tabitha was here, just so happened that Leah, who is the video editor for many of the School of Sweet Georgia classes, she celebrated her birthday. And so we all got the entire team together to celebrate at O5, which is a tea bar here in Vancouver. And it just so happens that Greta, who is the education program director for School of Sweet Georgia, her husband runs this beautiful and amazing tea shop in Vancouver called O5. I encourage you to check it out. If you like tea, please, please, please go check out the shop. It's amazing. It's an online shop, but also if you're in Vancouver, they have a beautiful tea bar where you can sit and try beautiful things. It's the first place that I ever tried kombucha. It's amazing. But we had this great chance to all get together and celebrate Leah's birthday. And so that was really nice. Now, this last photo here I wanted to share with you because this is Tabitha's weaving. Now, Tabitha, we've been talking for years now. Tabitha's a knitter. She knits. Um, and I've kind of been trying to encourage her to nudge her towards the direction of trying some weaving. But weaving is hard to get into if you don't have a loom, if you don't have access to a loom, if you just, yeah, you just need the stuff in order to get started. And so what we have here at the studio is we have stuff. And so Tabitha, when she came over here, this loom has already been dressed for kitchen towels. This is a warp that Laura Fry put on for us a couple of months ago for a course that we filmed called, it's going to be called Sectional Warping. And so it was all about learning how to warp your loom sectionally. And so that's what this warp is. And with this warp, what we're doing is at the studio, we are all going to sort of take turns weaving a kitchen towel using different colors, playing with colors, doing whatever you want with colors. And so this is Tabitha's very first time sitting down at a weaving loom and trying plain weave. I think she said she liked it, but we will see. But I wanted to show this to you because the warp here you can see is this kind of sea foamy blue-green color. And you can see there's a little bit of gradient happening here in the warp, some gradient striping, make a little bit of a smooth progression. But overall, it's kind of this blue-green seafoamy kind of color. And then the color that she picked as a weft is this bright grape jelly, grape crush kind of purple color. But you see when oh, there's Tabitha, when she's weaving that purple color into the seafoam color, the overall color that gets produced here is gorgeous. It's like this grayed back, mauvey, beautiful. It's like hint of purple rather than like blinding purple. Do you know what I mean? So like this is super bright purple. It's lovely purple too, but it's not that strong, bright purple anymore. It's just this beautiful, muted, melded together color. I thought it was really interesting because sometimes you just don't know what color to put in here. So it'll be really interesting to see what everybody picks for these different kitchen towels. And so this one is going to be woven in plain weave. I wove one last week that was all sort of dark turquoise kind of color, and I wove mine in twill. And so that is going to also look different because the twill versus the plain weave are going to look different as well. So if you've never tried weaving, I encourage you guys to give this a try. Just simple plain weave, playing with colors, the mixing and blending and the optical mixing that happens with weaving is just really super fun. So in any case, those are the exciting things that happened in the past month. Filming a lot of double weave stuff on the rigid heddle, filming socks, filming becoming a knitwear designer, celebrating things, trying new things. It's been a really, really exciting and super busy month. And so thank you so much to Tabitha for coming out. Thank you so much to everybody at the studio, at the team for doing all the work to make all of these courses happen. So really excited about all of this. Now, shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about something that has sort of a little bit been on my mind lately. And in the last live stream, I was talking about reading this long-term athlete development stuff because both my kids are in a lot of sort of activities. They're in sports, they're in things and stuff like that. And sometimes it is very challenging to be able to balance all of the activities that they are doing. However, it is something that is actually encouraged. So I talked about, how important it is, kids being physically active, doing sports and things like that. One of the other recommendations, besides being active every day, is this idea of multi-sport, which is to do more than one sport and to learn more than one sport at the same time, because it prevents kids from getting injured, because you doing the same kind of motion over and over and over again could cause injury. So making sure that kids are doing different kinds of activities, different kinds of sports, so that they're moving their body in different ways and how beneficial that is. And the recommendation for kids is that they, are doing this multiple activity, multiple sports for many, many years And then only after about 10 years would they start to specialize and choose one sport that they really, really like and then focus all their time and attention on that particular sport. So I'm just learning about all of these things now because, again, I didn't grow up with sports. And so as I think about this, I think about how we are also doing multiple activities at the same time. We're doing multiple crafts. We're spinning, we're knitting, sometimes we're weaving, sometimes we're doing just a lot of different kinds of physical activities related to our fiber arts. And it just triggered me because when Tabitha was weaving and she was sitting at the loom and she's weaving, she's like, my legs are getting a workout. Like, this is unexpected. I've never had to work out my legs as I've been doing like these crafts. And so thinking about that aspect of it, about how if you're knitting and your arms are getting sore, your wrists are getting sore, you're feeling sort of like repetitive strain, and then being able to switch to spinning or being able to switch to another kind of physical activity, another physical aspect of the fiber arts, being able to switch between all these different crafts is great because it gives your body the opportunity to rest rather than sitting there, you know, sitting there and just knitting all day like a marathon. So that part of it is good. Now, the other thing that has come up with this idea of multi-sport is that it's so challenging to juggle all of these activities. And sometimes, you're doing this one activity, which means that you miss that game or you miss that practice because you're at that event. And it's tricky to juggle that for the kids, but I feel like obviously we are also talking about how difficult it is to juggle all of our activities and how do I find time to spin when I'm actually wanting to weave or I'm wanting to knit, all of these kinds of things, hard to juggle. And so I wondered about this idea of, spending 10 years or so exploring different kinds of activities, exploring different kinds of crafts. And then after about 10 years, like this phase, I wonder if multi-craftual making is a phase that you go through as you explore and try different things. And then eventually, maybe we all settle down into one or two crafts that we focus on. I'm thinking about this because thinking about how to progress and how to get better at something. And right now, like I have just finished knitting that yoke of a new Studley jumper that I'm working on. This one happens to be in the BFL and Silk Fine, in some of the new colors that we have coming out this fall for Sweet Georgia. And this is my second time making this sweater on the machine. And the more I do it, the better at I get at it. I can feel like this is already better than the first one that I've done. But I can also still see room for improvement, a lot of improvement. I still see a lot of things that I'm sort of practicing and working through, even just combining colors to make this. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And I feel like if all I did right now was just focus on mixing and blending colors and finding good color combinations and knitting this sweater over and over again, I would get a lot better at it. So I wonder about how you feel about, how you're doing with your craft. Do you need to focus on one thing over another thing? Or are you getting a lot of joy over trying a lot of different things and, working with the balance? In any case, these are just some of the things that I've been thinking about. Like, what are the benefits of doing all of these different crafts? What are the challenges of doing all of these different crafts? And would it benefit you to take a season to just focus on one thing at a time? So, anyways, something just thinking about. I'm going to leave it with you guys. And you can leave in your comments. Tell me what you think about where you are in your process, in your progress, what you feel like you want to do right now. So let's talk about next latest updates in the school and what's happening. So, in terms of courses that are coming out soon, in terms of content that's coming out soon, actually just next week, next Wednesday, we are going to be hosting that live lecture with Laura Fry, and she's going to talk about weaving twills. And probably not this past January, the January before, I had launched a course about weaving twill on 4 shafts. And we had gone through doing a twill gamp, we made a twill project, we did a twill study group, and all these kinds of things. And so focused on twill on 4 shafts. And so this one with Laura Fry, she's going to look at, 8 shafts. 16 she has a 16 shaft loom, so she's looking at all the different things that you can do with twill when you go beyond 4 shafts. So that'll be really, really interesting to listen to. I may or may not be there personally for that actual lecture when it happens because I will be on my way to Missouri to attend the Erlbacher Crank In for the first time. So I'm going to be going to learn how to knit socks on a circular sock knitting machine from the manufacturers of the sock knitting machine that I acquired. I'm very, very excited about this. I'm actually super terrified and actually super nervous about going as well. But that's a whole other thing. In any case, I will watch Laura's lecture after the fact. The other thing that's going to be coming out in May is that we have a course called, naming this course was tricky, I'm just going to say, but it is about dyeing large quantities of fiber. And then later on, there's going to be dyeing large quantities of yarn. And these are all dyeing courses, dyeing content that we filmed with Charlotte last summer. And the idea was that it was about the ergonomics of dyeing larger volumes of yarn. So if you wanted to dye a sweater's worth of yarn, it's not one skein or two skeins or even four skeins. Maybe it's 8 skeins. Maybe it's 10 skeins of yarn. 10 skeins of yarn, when you have it in a pot and it's wet and the pot weighs like 50 to 75 pounds, how do you hold a pot that has boiling water in it that's 75 pounds? It's a lot. And so a lot of this is kind of looking at how do you hold your body relative to the equipment, to the pot, to your skeins of yarn, even pulling up, you know, all of these skeins out of the pot. How do you do that without injuring your arms, your shoulders, all of this kind of stuff? And so, dyeing large volumes of things beyond like one braid or one skein of fiber, that's something that Charlotte is going to explore. So the first one we're going to do is fiber, specifically fiber. And then later on in the year, we're going to do dyeing large quantities of yarn. So those two things are coming out. In June, we have the spinning textured yarns with Debbie Held. And so that's like spinning beehives and coils and textured things that you can use and weave and use as weft or, crochet or knit into something. So that's really, really fun to do. And I always think about spinning textured yarns as a very important skill to have, even if, um, you know, even if you are somebody who really loves smooth and even and consistent and perfectly consistent yarn, handspun yarn, learning to spin textured yarn is a skill that it shows the dexterity of your hands. So all the spinning, all yarn is made in your hands, not necessarily by the wheel. It's made in your hands. And so just your hands being able to manipulate how much fiber gets drafted out, how much twist goes in, when it goes in, all of this stuff is you making the yarn. And so I always find spinning textured yarns such an interesting um, process to go through. It's a really, really good thing to learn. Absolutely. And then in June, we have that two heddles on rigid heddle class coming out with Amanda Wood. In July, Laura Fry's class on lace weave structures is going to come out. And so that course is, we're talking about Bronson lace, spot lace, huck lace, Swedish lace. And so that content is going to be coming out soon. Very, very excited for that. And then there's going to be a Learn to Spin with Kim McKenna. And so this is going to be a really, really interesting class. And so it's Kim McKenna, who is our instructor, our spinning instructor. She's taught many, many things for us, including washing a raw fleece, working from fleece, the nuances of spinning, getting better at spinning. She's also going to come back and teach more about drafting and things like that. But this Learn to Spin class is going to be interesting because it's kind of like, um, it's a panel. It's like a reverse panel. It's like three students. So there are going to be three students in the class, and then Kim is going to be working with each student individually and as a group. So one of the spinners has uh, only ever spun on spindles, I believe, and never used a wheel. And then another spinner has spun for about a year, and then the last spinner is Charlotte, who had been spinning for a number of years. And so, with each one of these spinners at different levels of spinning ability, what should they be looking at? What should they be doing? Where should they go? How should they progress? And so, that course I think will be really, really interesting to watch. So, I have a little snapshot from that class, and that is here. So, there is a picture of Kim, and here's Charlotte. And so Charlotte is learning to spin on, well, she's been spinning for a number of years, but Kim is giving her advice on what she can do to level up and skill up in her spinning. Fantastic. And so last month, I had talked about how we have a new member survey. This new member survey is constantly ongoing. It's ongoing, and we're always reviewing the results of these surveys and what all the members are saying. But again, just kind of like reminded us that the content that our school, our members, everybody here in the community is interested in learning about is just more spinning content, more knitting content, and more weaving content, but split among rigid heddle and multi-shaft looms very evenly, actually, half half pretty much. So spinning, knitting, and weaving. And then that we are encouraged to make more video courses, any kind of length, everything from more than 2 hours to 1 hour to half an hour to 10 minutes, just more. So that's what we're going to do. And then the big thing that came out of that member survey is hearing the feedback about how we want to make more things together. We want to spend more time making things together, whether it's in study groups or in a make along, just actively doing more things together. And so we thought about that. We went back as a team and we talked about all of this. And we are going to do a number of things this summer. So it came up that many people wanted to do dyeing in the summer. Last year, was it last year? We did acid dyeing last summer. All of my summers are blending together now. But we have done summer dyeing study groups where one year we did all natural dyeing and we focused entirely on natural dyeing and working through all of these natural dyeing experiments and things like that, and doing that together as a group, sharing our progress week to week to week in the forums and everything like that. And then we also did one on acid dyeing, walking people through the steps of acid dyeing. How do you get started with dyeing? Working through a color triangle, dyeing your own color wheel, all of these kinds of things. And so this year, people still want to do more dyeing in the summer. Everybody wants to dye in the summer. I know that Vicky, who's here in the chat, she's been growing a natural dye garden at home, so she's working on that. Natural dyeing is coming. And so we thought what we would do this year, because Charlotte's class is coming up about dyeing fiber, we could focus a little bit on dyeing fiber. So in May, you can see here in May, the course on dyeing spinning fiber with Charlotte is coming out. And then we're also going to host a little bit of a color along. So Tabitha is hosting a color along where we're going to work with you could do stranded color work if you wanted to, mixing and combining different colors if you wanted to. Information about that is going to come out soon, but it's basically playing with color in May for a color along. And that conversation is going to happen in Discord. I've already set up the channel for that, so you can wander over there and take a look. And then in June, we want to do a dye along for dyeing spinning fiber. So practicing some of the things that Charlotte is teaching, learning to dye your own spinning fiber. And then it just so happens that in July, Tour de Fleece happens every summer. So Tour de Fleece is when you sit and you spin for every single day that the Tour de France is on. And you can watch the tour and spin at the same time. And we've never had like an actual official team for Tour de Fleece. We just have always participated in a very casual, like, give it a go kind of a way. And so what we're thinking is that we'll do this unofficial Tour de Fleece spin along, and you can spin some of that fiber that you dyed the previous month. And then in August, the class on dyeing large quantities of yarn comes out. And so we can continue with the study of dyeing yarn and dyeing maybe a sweater's worth of yarn if you wanted to, or dyeing some of the handspun that you've done. So lots of things like that. And then in September, we're going to do a spinning study sort of thing where every fall, last fall, I think we did the washing the fleece spinning group. And so this year, what we want to do is maybe spin specifically for knitting socks. You can spin for whatever you like, but you can spin more of the fiber that you dyed back in June, and you can focus on spinning techniques for spinning socks. So we have that course with Rachel Smith on spinning for socks, and it's working through a whole bunch of different yarn constructions, structures. So it's not always just a 2-ply yarn or a 3-ply yarn, traditional 3-ply yarn. There's also chain ply yarn, but she also goes into opposing plies. She also goes into all these different kinds of ways of constructing yarn that would be good for knitting socks. And then finally in October is October. October is always for October. and knitting socks. You can design your own socks in October, knit your own socks your own way. I will be knitting socks on my CSM during that month. And then you can also watch the class with Tabitha and do the knitting 2 socks at the same time, 2 at a time socks if you would like. And so this is kind of our plan for the next the 6 months or so, next 6 months or so of groups and chats and what we want to do and making things together and doing it hopefully in a way where we can follow our curiosity, get inspired by each other, share what we're doing as we're doing it, in a way that's can just be really fun and easy and no pressure, no homework, just fun. So I hope that you guys will join us for all of that. Just want to quickly share with you guys what the calendar looks like for next month. And so this is what May is looking like. We have the Looking at Twills Beyond Four Shafts with Laura Fry on that Wednesday. And then we have these ongoing meetups, the knitting meetup with Robin on Mondays. We have an ongoing weaving and spinning meetup with Vicky on Saturdays. And of course, you can bring whatever project you want to any of these sessions, whatever you like. And then we have these 2 live sessions, Taking Back Friday, which is our live session on YouTube. And then we have this live office hours, which is the last Thursday of every month. I'm also thinking about doing a weaving session, like a weaving work session, where we're not necessarily sitting and talking very much about things and there's no presentation, but I'm just thinking about like setting up a Zoom room where I can turn it on and I will just be weaving and working and winding bobbins and doing things in the studio, and that you might want to join me at the same time and work on your project, kind of like a like a we work but for weavers. And virtual. I don't know. I'm just thinking about this, but you can let me know in the comments if you think this is a good idea or a crazy idea, or if you would want to show up or not show up. I would be really interested to hear about that because I feel like I'm in the studio and I'm weaving sometimes, and sometimes it would be nice to just have company, just to turn on a switch and then just say, "Hey, I'm weaving today." I'm very quiet when I weave. Yeah, a work along, a weave along. So thinking about that. Yes. So, in the community, this is just a reminder to head over to the SOS forums, and all of our conversations are happening in there. All of the deep learning, good conversations are happening in here where we're, exploring ideas, asking questions, answering. A lot of photo tutorials end up in this community, which is quite amazing. And we have amazing moderators here. Vicky is here in the chat here. There's also Robin, who's one of our moderators from the team. And so Vicky and Robin are in there every day, multiple times a day, answering questions and helping you connect with the instructors if you need to. But they are both extremely knowledgeable and very, very skilled fiber artists as well, and have just done so much to help everybody. So it's always wonderful to see what's happening inside the community forums. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention is that we had the group section. The groups were a section where we were hosting study groups. And then we felt that study groups became overwhelming for people, for everybody, because there was this sense of having to keep up week to week to week to week. And so we kind of took a pause on the study groups, but then realizing that everybody does want to work together and does want to share what they're working on together, we decided to do a little bit of housekeeping and tidy up the study groups to make them a place where you could continue to post your study notes, what you're learning, and to have like a more relaxed pace about the learning. But in any case, we took a lot of these study groups and cleaned them up. And in these study groups, now you're going to find people's learning notes. So if you've been working through, say, like Tapestry, or working through all of the exercises in the Tapestry classes, you can post your photos there. You can talk about your questions there. All of that kind of stuff is going to happen in all of these groups, and they're going to stay open and live. Because I remember when we did the Tapestry study group, I think it was only maybe 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And then members of that study group were saying, "Oh, but I want to continue weaving Tapestry. Where can I post now? Where do I keep going?" And so this is the idea, is that we can keep these study groups open and you can continue to post and continue to chat about these particular topics. So, yeah, wonderful. You're doing Tapestry right now. Fantastic. So, this is what it's going to be. I encourage you guys to come and check out the groups. Maybe join the ones that you are most interested in learning about, where you want to focus some attention, where a lot of the more in-depth study notes are in here. You should read some of these notes. They're very, very detailed. There's a lot of amazing information and learning in all of these groups. We also opened a few new groups. So, like, we opened one for crochet because many people are starting to do more and more crochet in the school. We opened one for punch needle, which is just for Leah and anybody who's also doing punch needle. And so there's a lot of that going on. Oh, and there's one for color, fiber prep, and blending studies. So there was some focus on blending boards, using combs, using carders, using hackles, using all sorts of different fiber prep tools to blend colors together. That is where those conversations can go in here. That's kind of different from like a working from fleece, which is washing raw fleece, processing raw fleece, all of that kind of stuff. So this is what is happening with the groups section in the community area. So I encourage you to go check it out and see what's happening in there. And then finally, this is just a reminder about the Discord chat. So we do have this Discord chat. It is kind of like unofficial. It's more for anybody sort of in the larger Sweet Georgia community who wants to knit something, make along, share anything, anything like that. Lots and lots of conversations happening in the Discord chat. If you go into your SOS membership and go to your dashboard, at the very bottom, there's going to be a section where you can connect your SOS account to your Discord account. And so that will automatically highlight your name in orange. So that way we can see, oh, yeah, you're also in the school. And then we can help direct you to content in the school as well. So if we see you in Discord and we're like, oh, you're an SOS member, then it helps us have some context for what's going on. So that is that. If you need information about what the Discord server is, how to join, all of that information is here on the Sweet Georgia website as well. Now, let's talk about what you guys have been making. So, fantastic. So Elena has been spinning, doing some combo spinning. So this is combo drafting, where basically what she's done is she's taking multiple colors of spinning fiber or different braids of spinning fiber and then stripping them into finer strips and then holding two or three strips together and drafting at the same time from all three strips. And so if you follow this whole conversation, drafting together multiple rovings combed top, if you follow this conversation, there's a lot of information about, well, it's a little bit tricky to be able to draft from all three fibers at the same time, but she's done a beautiful job, super beautiful, consistent, even spinning here. This is one of the Dreaming Robots e-spinners, and we did that whole class with Debbie Held on spinning with e-spinners. This has become a super popular e-spinner, and just very robust, able to spin so much. Look at this beautiful giant bobbin. She says that she has about 8 ounces, and so it's too much for socks. And so she's interested in figuring out what to make with all of this. But if you're interested in learning about combo spinning, combo drafting, combo plying, I encourage you guys to check out this one, the Spinning Intentional Color class. And that is a spot where we talk about that. So beautiful, beautiful yarn, Elena. The next one I want to share is Kathleen's Granny Squares. So Charlotte's class on crochet granny squares came out recently. And so learning how to crochet a granny square, it's very, very useful. You know, you can make these squares as large as you want, as small as you want, combine them, mix colors, do all sorts of different things. And so Charlotte has, I think, 5 different projects that she's created from one basic granny square. And yeah, these are really, really lovely. Kathleen's offered a number of different photos, different arrangements of these granny squares. Very, very sweet. And she's making an afternoon lap throw. And granny squaring is addictive. Really, really great. So there's the course for the Granny Squares class if you guys also want to participate and join. Thank you, Lily. Thank you. I have another picture here. Oh, yes, this is about Tapestry. Oh, this one, the photo's a little bit pixelated. But this is Anya's tapestry. She's working on a tapestry. She's working on a Ashford tapestry loom, and she's also trying to. She has a floor loom as well that she wants to work on. But she's trying to figure out the set for tapestry and how to get that weft faced look. Like how do you get it? So this actually is turned on its side, so you can see the white warp threads going horizontally, and then this color, this light color, and then this dark purple color. This is all the weft yarn here. And so the goal here is to kind of squish down all of your weft yarn so that you don't see any of these white warp threads. If you do see these white warp threads, I believe it's called lice. And so you're kind of trying to squish down your weft so that you don't see any of that warp color. And so she's having a whole conversation here about what should she do in order to um, change that, to get that tapestry look. Is the warp too thin, or is the weft yarn not the right size? Should I get another reed size? And so there's a number of different things that could be done in order to make that weft face look. One of the things could be to make the set a little bit wider, to widen up the set, loosen up the set so that the weft yarn has space to pack down. It could also be that maybe the weft yarn, it looks dense, it looks firm. Maybe it's not squishy, like squishable. Is that a word? It can't be squished down. Sometimes it's a matter of beating much, much harder. Sometimes it could be a matter of maybe the weft yarn needs to be bigger in order to cover. So there's a lot of different exploration. And if you go into that tapestry studies group, you will see a lot of conversation about different set, different number of weft plies in order to create a different look. So a lot of conversation about that, but experimenting and sampling and finding that right set and then being able to move that to your floor loom would be a great thing. So yes, I believe Vicky highlighted this thread, this link here. So Jana, who teaches our tapestry classes, she did have a section where she talked about trying to find the right set. And that was in this lesson here, blending colors with meet and separate. So you can check that out. The next thing that was happening is we recently released a class about spinning luxury fibers with Rachel Smith, and this one was about camelids, spinning camel fiber. And so this one, camelids, camel, alpaca, and one more. It's left my brain right now. But this is Julie's handspun. Julie has been spinning a 100% alpaca. And look at how beautifully plied that yarn is. It is gorgeous. It's like string of pearls, grains of rice, kind of beautiful. And she's saying this was a woolen prep and she spun it long draw. This is the first time spinning alpaca and still playing around with long draw, but the yarn is so soft and so light. Spinning it long draw for me was the ticket. I don't know what I can make with it because I always hear that 100% alpaca doesn't hold its shape. Have any ideas for me? I think always it's just a matter of knowing how much the alpaca will change after wet blocking. So this is where making a swatch, making a big swatch would be really, really helpful. But also maybe there were suggestions about if you're going to weave with it, that maybe you weave it a little bit denser, that so that it holds its shape a little bit more. I think it is just a matter of sampling and figuring out how it's going to behave so that you can predict. Then if you make a sweater, you know, I'm not going to make it 10 inches, and maybe I'll make it 7 inches and it will eventually grow to 10 inches, something like that. So you can have a look at that. And so that Julie is here in the chat. It's beautiful spinning. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now, I want to share this one with you. Okay, so this is Althea's part of Althea's learning plan is she wanted to do some natural dyeing. She wanted to do some rewriting of vintage knitting patterns. There was a bunch of things that she wanted to do. That's all in her learning plan here. But this is one of the first things that she posted. This is some desert marigold, also known as Bilea multiradiata. And she said that it's kind of like yeah, it's a wildflower, really. And I guess there's some construction going on here. And she said that the developers were just kind of gonna just chop all this off, just get rid of all of this, all these flowers. But she gathered the flowers and then dyed them on her yarn, and it looked like this. which was beautiful. And she said the dyed yarn, the picture doesn't capture the true color, which is a very lemony yellow, and the original color was off white. So her original yarn color was kind of ecru off white color, and then dyed in that yellow flowers that were wild crafted, and just produced a beautiful lemon yellow color. Absolutely wonderful. So if you are also interested in this idea of wildcrafting, like going around your neighborhood and finding materials that you can dye with, then I encourage you to check out Caitlin's class here. This is the Natural Dyeing Basics class. And at the end, or there's a section of this class where Caitlin walks us around the studio, the neighborhood of the studio, and we just stumbled on all of these flowers, all these wildflowers, also bright yellow wildflowers that you could just, collect mindfully and then use for dyeing to make actually very strong colors. So this is really lovely. But there was a color at there's a question at the start of the session today asking any suggestions for photographing subtle natural dye colors. I just dyed a yarn, a buttery yellow, soft and pale, that washes out to off white in pictures and videos. Thanks. And so photographing some of these colors, sometimes what you want is not necessarily bright light or bright direct sunlight, because sometimes that bright direct sunlight that you get in summertime, you think, oh, I need a lot of light. And so photographing things in bright direct sunlight might not be the answer, because it might wash out the color. It might just reflect so much light off of it that you're missing the actual color. So what I prefer is always diffuse light. Diffused light, diffused window light is my favorite. So if you have like a nice big giant window, but then you take like a white gauze or a white screen, white fabric. I get white fabric from the dollar store. They have these curtains, these shears that you can buy at the dollar store for like $1 or $2. And I might use one layer or two layers on top of a big window to diffuse the light. And then I can put the yarn in front of the window, and then I shoot toward the window so that the light is almost a little bit backlit. And so that way I'm getting much softer light on the yarn. And that's the way I shoot a ton of yarn photos, just window light that's been diffused. And then if I find that the window light is coming on one direction, and then the other direction, the other side of the yarn is in shadow, like even in this photograph here. So if the window light is coming from this direction here, you can see my cursor here. If the window light is coming from this direction here, and this side of it is too much in shadow, then I would hold a reflector card, which is really just like a piece of white paper or a piece of white foam core. I hold it on this side of the yarn, and it bounces the window light back onto this side of the yarn, and then makes the whole thing look much more even in appearance. And so I thank you to Vicky for posting the yarnography link. So yarnography is a course in photography that I taught for the School of Sweet Georgia, and it talks about how I light all the yarn. It shows examples of what the yarn looks like in different kinds of light from different kinds of angles. And yeah, a lot of what I'm talking about is all in that course, yarnography. I really encourage you guys to check that one out. I know it's not like fiber arts, it's like adjacent to the fiber arts, but in order to present your work and share your work with other people in a way where you feel good that it's made a good representation of what you've created, I feel like learning how to photograph your work really well, light your work, take a good shot, take a good shot that's doesn't have a color cast to it, all of these kinds of things. It's just part of communicating what you've made. So yeah, please do check that course out too. And this is Cindy's very first weaving. It's amazing. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. So she's saying she's very excited to join the School of Sweet Georgia. She actually retired on March 31st of this year, so just a few weeks ago. And she said, one of my goals is to deep dive into the fiber arts. I'm already a knitter and I dabble a bit in embroidery and cross stitch, but I'm most excited to learn to weave. I've inherited 3 looms from my grandmother, and they have sat untouched in the basement for nearly 20 years. And so she's just recently joined a weavers guild. She took an introductory weaving class, class on a borrowed Ashford table loom, and she's working right now on her first independent project on the Leclerc table loom. She says a whole new world, exciting and daunting. I know that knitters are nice people, and I'm sure weavers are too. So I'm excited to have resources to learn and explore. So welcome, Cindy. This is beautiful. This is her first project. There's actually two photos on this particular thread here, and one of them has stripes and it shows a little bit of a twill and I think some point twill, and this one is a beautiful tutu twill plaid scarf that's woven in 3/2 cotton, and it's just beautiful. It's so square. It's so nice. So congratulations, Cindy. Just really looking forward to weaving with you, and thanks for being here. This one wanted to share with you guys is Robin, one of our moderators in the school. She does a lot of different fiber arts, but recently she stumbled upon a knitting machine. It was a Knit King 1950s knitting machine. I believe it's 1950s. And it came with like books, and it came with a ribber, it came with manual, came with all these things. And so she managed to clean it up, get it all set up and working. And she has been making lots of things on her knitting machine, actual finished items, which is amazing. And so this is knit out of the merino silk lace that we have at the studio. This is hand-dyed merino silk lace, I believe. And you can just follow this entire thread, Robin's Adventures in Machine Knitting. And so she's knitting things, she's making notes. She said she knit like 160 rows in an hour. And so you can do quite a bit with a knitting machine. So just excited to see where Robin takes all of that. And so if anybody else is interested in learning how to use a knitting machine, yeah, you can have a look and see what she's doing here. I stumbled into this whole world of machine knitting last January as well, and it's been so interesting. It's been not easy because these machines aren't really made anymore. And when you find them, you're finding them on marketplaces. You're having to restore them, kind of rebuild them in some ways, trying to figure out things from old manuals that were printed in the 60s. It's just, it's a funny little corner. But every time I post something about knitting machines, so many people message in the comments saying, "Oh, I have one. Oh, I have one in storage. Oh, I'm interested in learning." So I feel like there are people out there who want to do this and want to learn. It's just a matter of where do we go? How do we find this knowledge? So in any case, I encourage you to check that out if you're also interested in machine knitting. This one is Andrea's post. Andrea has a very extensive learning plan. We've shared about Andrea's learning plan before, and Andrea makes a lot of things, but this one I wanted to highlight because it is a conversation about how she started to clean all of her fiber arts tools and kind of spring cleaning, but cleaning the wheels, tuning up the wheels, getting everything sort of just tidied up and cleaned and refreshed and restored and everything like that. And it reminded me that Katrina Stewart and her husband Eric came to the studio and filmed a whole piece of content about tuning up your wheel. And it was about how do you clean your wheel? What do you clean it with? How do you clean the orifice? How do you clean the treadles? How do you tie on a new drive band? Where do you oil? How often do you oil? All of this kind of stuff. And so it was just a nice reminder that it's spring. This is a great time to take out your wheel, take out your loom, dust, clean, do all of those things. And so I appreciate Andrea for reminding us to do that. Also wanted to share here Jean's very first hand spun on a spindle. We do love seeing everybody's first yarns. It is wonderful and amazing, that miraculous moment when yarn gets made on a spindle or however. And in this case, this one is the first time that Jean has tried working with Angelina Sparkle as well. And it's really lovely. So I just wanted to welcome Jean. If you guys want to go and say hi to her as well, new member, this is the thread here. And we do have a lot of classes on spinning, and I have broken them up into sort of like fundamentals, a sort of foundation level, and then intermediate level, and then advanced level. So whatever level of spinner you are right now, you can look and see what other things can you do as you learn and progress. And now this is the last project I wanted to share with you guys. This is by Leah, who I mentioned before is our video editor for many of our classes. And so she recently wanted to play with these two braids, these two fiber braids. This is actually a fiber braid that we dyed for Sweet Georgia that was dyed specifically for Maybe not. I'm thinking that this was the colorway that we made for Shacked for their 50th anniversary, but now I can't remember. In any case, we dyed this fiber, and then this one is Lillian Pine. And so what Leah did was she actually took the Lillian Pine one and put it on a drum carder. They are two different fibers. So this one is Polworth and silk, and this one is merino. And so she blended that one on the drum carder, and then took the two, spun them into separate bobbins, and then plied them together to make this super fun yarn. So this is combo plying as opposed to the first photo that I showed you today. The first photo was Elena's combo drafting. So that is when you are drafting fiber together from two different color sources and creating a marl in the singles. This is taking two different colors, spinning two different colors to do separate bobbins and then plying them together in order to create something brand new. So this is also super lovely, but you can see the marl is in the ply of the yarn and not in the single itself. Yeah, super, super fun. So if you want to learn more about those kinds of different ways of playing with color in your spinning, that class is Spinning Intentional Color. We actually have a lot of classes about spinning with color, different kinds of ways of working with color. So in any case, that is the last project to share today. So thank you to everybody for sharing your work in the forums. It is amazing and wonderful and super inspiring to see every month. So thank you. Now, this month we have a giveaway. This is the link that you can go to schoolofsweetgeorgia.com/live 2023 APR for April. And then every month we ask basically what was helpful to you about this session. What will you take away? What will you add to your practice? What will you be thinking about? What are you going to be working on? All of these kinds of things. It's really just 2 questions, and then you can just let us know what you think. And we do a draw, a random draw. We'll do the draw. We keep this giveaway open for 1 day until tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Friday. And then the winner will get their choice of either the Spinning Luxury Fiber Pack, where you get one choice of a Spinning Luxury Silk Kit, plus the 18.5 micron merino fiber so that you can blend silk and merino together in different quantities. So one option is the Spinning Luxury Fiber Pack. And then the other option that you can choose from is the Crochet Granny Square Pack. So it's your choice of a party of 5 in the Super Wash DK. And so the Super Wash DK party of 5, you can use that to make a whole bunch of granny squares, make yourself a pillow top, whatever you like. So if you win the giveaway, you can do spinning kit or crochet kit. Actually, it's a party of 5 mini skein set in Superwash DK. So you could knit with it, you could weave with it, you could do whatever you like with it. But we are suggesting granny squares. So that is that for today. That is everything for today. 57 minutes. Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you everybody for being here in the chat. It is always wonderful and amazing to see you all here. I'm having such an amazing time reading everything that you guys are doing, both in the SOS forums and also on Discord. I feel like it's because it's spring, or maybe like the weather is getting better. Everything is just feeling a little bit more light, a little bit more bright. And I am doing more knitting. I am doing more weaving. I actually started spinning some fiber a couple days ago, and it's been actually really, really wonderful. So just excited to see more of you guys, what you guys are doing, seeing you guys inside the forums. Hopefully you guys will do the color along with us this May. Hopefully you guys will dye along with us this summer, and just really look forward to seeing what you guys are all making. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys inside the school. All right, bye for now.